Hey guys, Tony Rush here. Quick video for you today. This will be something to help you with your prosperity mindset. This is for working on your head. Arguably the most important part of your journey on getting to where you want to go financially is how you think about money. And I'll tell you one thing, when I was broke and struggling, one of the biggest things that I had to overcome, and I think this is true for everybody, one of the biggest things I had to overcome was the idea that there wasn't a lot of money out there, or that there weren't a lot of wealthy people out there. It's kind of a side effect of being broke. When you're broke and struggling, you assume that everybody's broke and struggling, which actually makes it more difficult to become wealthy for reasons we won't have time to talk about on this video. But suffice it to say, if you're barely paying the bills and you're squeaking by, one of the more helpful things that you can do for your mindset is to actually deliberately and consciously go explore how much money there actually is out there. What do wealthy people live like? How many people are actually wealthy? And it's a great exercise because it'll give you some eye-opening experiences. And I'll share one with you that really helped me a lot. For instance, when I was broke, I used to really criticize wealthy people for some of their spending. I used to love to make fun of first-class airfare. That was my favorite thing, probably. Oh, I had this joke too. I thought it was just so funny. Oh, I can't believe they paid $2,000 to fly first class just so they could get there 10 seconds before me. Never mind the fact that it also included not having to go through an hour wait at security. They got to, get on the plane earlier, much bigger seat, all kinds of amenities. But anyway, bottom line is when you're broke and struggling, it's easy to make fun of how wealthy people live, which is actually a paradox because you're not going to become wealthy if your general mindset is to ridicule and make fun of wealth. Your subconscious mind will not allow you to become that which you ridicule. So anyway, here's an interesting thing. This was a breakthrough for me. One of the things you can do is really start exploring how much money is out there and how wealthy people live. And here's an example. I knew a guy at the time. He was making a little over $100,000 a month. And I didn't know this guy well. I wouldn't say he was a friend of mine. But he was making about $1.2 million a year. And I remember he got a Mercedes, a SL series Mercedes. I think it was like an SL 600 or something at the time. It was, I think the retail price on that car was probably about $150,000. Just to keep the math simple, let's say it was $120,000. So I had this aha moment. Here's a guy that's making he's making $1.2 million a year, and he buys a $120,000 car. Now, a broke person looks at that and says, I can't believe they would spend that much money on a car. That's just immoral. They should have bought a Ford and given that money to charity, right? But here's the aha moment I had, and you may already, because of the math, you may already see this coming. This guy was driving a car that represented just 10% of his annual income. He's making $1.2 million a year, and the retail list price for his car, $120,000. So he's basically driving a car that represents, at full purchase price, 10% of his annual income. Well, if you contrast that to somebody that's, say, making $30,000 a year, that means they should be driving a $3,000 car. But they're not, are they? No way will you see somebody making $30,000 a year driving a $3,000 car. No, they're driving a $15,000 or a $20,000 car. And if they can swing it, a lot of times they're driving a $30,000 car. And that's the aha moment that I had, was that my millionaire friend was paying less for his car than a middle-income American who's driving a much more expensive vehicle than that Mercedes. So that's how actually a Lexus can be more expensive than a Mercedes. That's how a Toyota or a Honda can be more expensive than a Mercedes. Because expensive is all based on how much money you have and what your affordability is. And this is why sometimes, like I was at dinner last night with a friend of mine who is a wildly successful jeweler. And my wife and I were out with him and his wife, and he was saying that he just got back from a jewelry show in New York. And while he was in New York, a guy came in and said, "Hey, I want to show you this new shotgun that I've just purchased." And he opened it up, and I don't even know what the thing was, but it was apparently made of Damascus steel. Steel that's normally reserved for making swords. And this guy commissioned a Damascus steel shotgun to be made. It took 3 years to make. He had to pay for it all in advance. And my friend that was telling me the story, he said, if I had to estimate, based on what I know about firearms and collectibles and this whole, that world, it's probably a $300,000 shotgun. Now, the first thing that comes in your head might be, who in the world would pay that? Well, let me tell you who would pay that. And I don't even know the guy. But here's what we can probably deduce about a $300,000 shotgun. Is the guy who owns it, he's probably living in something nicer than a $300,000 house. You know, you wouldn't see somebody living in a $300,000 house spending the same amount on a shotgun. This guy's probably making millions and millions of dollars a year. So spending $300,000 on a shotgun might be as inexpensive to him as someone who's making say $20,000 a year, going and buying a big screen TV. See, you never hear about that. You know, all the talk about, oh, I can't believe he spent all that money on a gun, or I can't believe he spent all that money on a car. But where's the outcry and the moral outrage about somebody who can't pay their bills who owns a big screen TV? You know, they're making $2,000 a month, and they go spend $1,000 or $1,500 on a large screen TV. Now, here's my point. I'm not saying it's good, bad, right, or wrong. I'm not saying there's anything to be upset about either way. I'm saying life is a choice. And life will let you play at any level of the game that you're willing to take responsibility for. Okay? And I'll have to talk about that on another video, but I'm using that language deliberately. Life will let you play on any level of the game that you're willing to take responsibility for. So one way to start getting your head around prosperity and abundance is to start deliberately looking to see how much wealth there is out there, and how there's, let me lay this on you. There's people today, I'll give you an example. I received a check on stage at our last company event that represented my earnings for the second quarter of this year. It was just under $400,000, $390-something thousand. Now, that's not typical. We have an income disclaimer. Your results would not necessarily be anything not like that if you decided to come into the business and do what I do. So don't be a wussy. I'm not trying to suggest that you should come into my business because you can start making $130,000 a month like I do. But here's what I am pointing out. $400,000 earning in 3 months. Let me invite you to try this on. There are some people that if they had to get by on $130,000 a month, they would feel broke. There are some people, my friend, who if they had to get by on $25,000 or $30,000 a week, they would feel like they were in poverty. Like Bill Gates, that doesn't allow him to do what he needs to do. See, Bill Gates is on a mission right now. You may not know this. He's on a mission right now to stamp out polio around the world, and he's just about done it. There's a lot going on in the life of Bill Gates in terms of philanthropy. And you may or may not like Bill Gates, and that's fine. You may or may not like his company, and that's fine. Personally, I despise Microsoft. But I admire anybody who's playing at the top level of his game, which I think we can all agree that Bill Gates is a master at amassing wealth and prosperity. But, like, can you see that if he had to get by on what I make every month, he would feel broke? That's inspiring to me. That's not something for me to make fun of. I remember when he got married and he built that big house up in Washington, everybody wanted to make fun of Bill Gates because he built this huge multi-million-dollar place, and the swimming pool has, you know, underwater music, and it's like all the different amenities in the house. People made fun of it because it's like, here's this rich nerd, right? But here's what you got to get. That multi-million-dollar home probably represented maybe a few months of income for him. Which, if you compare that to someone who's a middle income earner in America, and they're going to it's going to take them 30 years to pay off their house. So I submit to you, it's possible for somebody to drive around in a Toyota that's more expensive than a Mercedes. It's possible that the house you're living in is more expensive than Bill Gates' mansion, because expensive is all about affordability. So when you see wealthy people living a certain way, check yourself and make sure that you're not ridiculing the very thing that you would like to be able to do. And number two, bear in mind that if somebody else is buying what you would consider to be a ridiculously expensive item, make sure to put that in the context that that person may be not spending as much on that item as a middle income or a broke person is spending on their monthly Netflix subscription. So this whole concept about adopting a prosperity mindset is deeper than a lot of people think. So there's your homework. Start admiring, looking at wealthy people and what they're doing with their money, and start celebrating prosperity instead of criticizing it, and that will open up a whole new door for you on your journey to getting from where you are to where you want to go. I hope that's of value to you. We'll see you on the next video.